Hey guys, welcome back. I'm back at Raw Shep again. In the meantime, just to get out of the house for a little bit. It's sure quiet here though. Not a lot of people in the hallways, that's for sure. This is our second online lesson for our Social Studies 20 class. We are going to be continue looking at national interest, and we're going to look at what countries wanted to do before World War One and how that changed after World War One. So, a little bit of review from last class. What were the main causes of World War I? So can you tell me and explain what the four main causes? Remember, it's an acronym. So M, militarism. They were building larger and larger armies. Everybody wanted to be bigger and stronger. Alliances. They had secret friendships with other countries, which meant when one went to war, they all got dragged into it. Imperialism. They were building and fighting over colonies in places like Africa, and they wanted to make sure they got the best colonies. Nationalism. Each country wanted to be stronger and better, and the people that were living under empires, just like in the French Revolution, wanted to become their own country, and they started to fight out of that. This video here will go over those four main causes. It's 6 minutes long, and it'll help you review those causes. So our learning goals for today. What were the national interests of European countries before the war? What was the Treaty of Versailles at the end of the war? And then what was the national interest of European countries after the war? So we're going to look at before the war, how the war ended, and then what they wanted after the war. So you can see the three flags of the three big powers during World War I. Now, before World War I, these three countries were kind of at odds with each other. France wanted to slow down Germany's growth and power. Germany was kind of a new country, and France was worried that it was going to kind of impose itself upon the other nations. Germany was interested in getting a bigger piece of the pie. Britain and France had controlled a lot of the world for a long time, and Germany wanted to control more of places like Africa. Britain wanted to continue to be the big dog. It wanted to continue to be the most powerful and control the seas with a large navy. Before World War I, many people thought that war was a glorious and noble thing. They thought of war in this amazing way where gentlemen would go and fight for their country. They believed it was honorable for nations to fight in order to spread civilization. This is a poster advertising for soldiers, and it showed that war was kind of necessary and that you had to go do it for your country. World War I was important to countries like Canada as well. It helped form a Canadian identity because Canada was very young during this time. They were only about 50 years old, not even. So that's like a teenager as far as a country's concerned. And imagine, they're like a teenager living in Britain's basement. You know, they're still kind of dependent on Britain for food and for resources and for even some military. But eventually they want to move out and they want to establish themselves as an adult. And World War I is when Canadian soldiers fought bravely and they helped win a very important battle known as Vimy Ridge. This is a giant monument that France actually built for Canada on Vimy Ridge, and it helps. It was a present to Canada for helping them win this battle. You can see the little video here which talks about, it's 1 minute long, and it'll tell you a little bit more about Vimy Ridge. So by fighting in World War I, Canadians began to view themselves as a strong and independent nation. And the Battle of Vimy Ridge was important in Canadian history because we proved we were tough, proud, honorable, and that we would fight for what we believed was right in the world. The end of the war. The end of World War I is called the Treaty of Versailles. A treaty is an agreement in which two sides decide to stop something they're doing. In this case, a fight like World War I. The treaty was signed at 11 a.m. on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. This is why we do Remembrance Day at 11 o'clock on November 11th. Okay? And it marked the end of the war. It's important to note that Germany and Austria-Hungary, they lost the war. So Britain, France, and Russia, they were victorious. The Treaty of Versailles was not very kind to Germany. The treaty required Germany to reduce its military, so it had to get a smaller military. It had to pay war reparations to the Allies for the cost of the war. That means they basically had to pay money to France and England for how much money the war cost. They had to give up territory in Europe, and they had to give up its colonies in Africa. They also had to accept responsibility for the war, known as the War Guilt Clause. I want you to think about from World War I as a bar fight. Was Germany 100% responsible for starting the war? Or were there many different reasons? One we saw with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. The alliances. Everybody was teaming up with each other. The big militaries. Everybody had big militaries and was kind of pointing their guns at each other. So I want you to think, was Germany really 100% to blame, even though they had to pay for everything? In these videos, you can watch as to what Treaty of Versailles looked like, and what did France want versus what did USA want, or what did Britain want. This is part 2 of the same video. It's a couple minutes long. In this map here, it is small, but if you take a look, you can see that Germany lost some of these territories, the territories in gray. They lost the territories over here near Poland. They were forbidden to unite with Austria, and they had to give up all the factories that were in these areas that they used to use for resources. When we get to World War II and Adolf Hitler, these will become very important because Germany decides they want to take those lands back from when it was taken away. World War I cost millions of lives. Millions and millions of people died. Families, cities, and countries were destroyed. So after the war, Canadians were no longer interested in fighting wars. Neither was France or Britain. They needed to rebuild their countries. Roads had been destroyed, cities and hospitals. Germany was forced to pay so much money that it had no money left after the war. And we'll get into that in the next chapter. Britain desperately wanted to avoid another large war, and same with the United States. They wanted to do everything they could to avoid the big countries fighting each other, and they wanted to avoid World War II. As a result of World War I, new weapons were created. Machine guns, tanks, airplanes. Now some of these will go on to help the world. Airplanes and cars became much more technologically advanced. And you could say as a result of World War I, because countries needed to develop these technologies. But it also made war much more brutal. The collapse of empires. Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire all splintered back down into smaller countries again. These countries were very nationalistic. They wanted to be their own countries. So the idea of big empires started to fall. New, smaller countries were created. But of course, millions of people died. Farms and factories were destroyed. I've included the video at the end here, and there's no questions that go with it, but I thought you might enjoy it because it goes over the Treaty of Versailles and what the end of the war looked like in Europe. That is this video here. Once you have watched this video, and you've reviewed your slides again, I have given you your second assignment questions. They're called Online Lesson 2. So you have questions that go directly with the slide. Now, as you can see, I've given you the slide number and I've given you how many marks, meaning pieces of information I'm looking for. So use your slides and use the videos to find all of the information to complete this. You can type directly into this document as it is a Google Doc. Okay, so it'll save automatically and then you just turn it in with on Google Classroom. Okay, that does it for today's lesson. I will see you guys online on our Google Hangout at 10:30 in the morning, Monday morning. Okay, so you can feel free to start the assignment before and ask me questions at that Hangout, or you can start it directly after the Hangout and ask me a little bit more about what you need to do during the Hangout. I look forward to talking to you guys then. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you later.